Good evening, all. Good evening, all. I can only assume you can hear me loud and clear because Dan's dealing with technicals. A few people asking if this can be played back later. Absolutely, it can. You don't have to watch live. If you've got a member of the household who's running late from work, then yeah, absolutely, they can watch it any time. If there's any wine left, obviously. I mean, if there's wine left after tonight, then you've all failed miserably.
Yeah.
But,
Mike is back on now, everyone. Mike is back on. Cheers.
Oh, here he is. Here he is.
Apologies for that.
So yeah, you can watch this back. You can watch this back at any time you want. I would get the wines drunk though, if not tonight, by tomorrow. Obviously, they've had a little bit of travel time, and we want them to be in peak condition. But yes, people can watch back later. Feel free to use the YouTube chat this evening. As much as you like, but we do encourage you to log on to Slido to ask your questions, just so that it keeps them all in the same place. I'm sure Dan will keep an eye on the YouTube chat as well. He's good like that. So we can fire off any questions from there as well. But yeah, if you want to log on to Slido, then Dan's going to give you a little demo on how that will all work later. But if you go to the Smash Grapes website, smashgrapes.co.uk, go to the Try Before You Buy tasting, and there's info on the tasting, and you can click on there. There's a Slido link, and that's going to allow you to ask us questions and also give us some feedback on the wines.
Yeah.
Dan, you with us?
I am. If you want a slightly quicker route to get the Slido up as well, you can scan the QR code that's on screen, or go to slido.com.
Sorry.
And where it asks you to put your event ID in, you can press. You type in the hashtag SG Wine Tasting. So yeah, we'll keep throwing this up throughout the evening. You'll have plenty of time to interact with it. Cool. Right. So guys, this is a wine tasting night. So I hope you have got your wines handy. We're going to start on the white wines, and you'll notice that number 3 is a rosé as well, and then we'll move on to the red wines. So what you need to do first off is get bottle number 1, please. It should look something like this. And pour yourself a glass. You're only going to need 2 glasses tonight, one for the whites, one for the reds. And Sam, just want to give everyone just a brief little, while I'm pouring that out, just this isn't your usual wine tasting.
No, it's not. Yeah, so how's tonight going to work? So if you have been to a wine tasting before, most likely in the flesh, in the real world, out there in the scary old world, not virtually, then you'll sort of have an idea, a preconception of what a wine tasting can or looks like. Ours are different, hopefully. Ours are a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting, and hopefully a little bit more relevant to everyday wine drinking. So I've been working in the wine industry for a number of years now. I've been very lucky to travel to some fantastic winemaking regions and learn about fantastic wines. And I've worked in Michelin-star restaurants, and I've done tastings in very high fine dining establishments. And the one thing that struck me during all that time, as fun as it was, it's a great job to have, is that environment is really nothing like what wine drinking is for the vast majority of us. For the vast majority of us, wine drinking is just about the pleasure, coming home after a hard day's work, cracking open something that's tasty, that's refreshing, that makes you relax or feel good, or perhaps lubricates a social situation. That's what real wine drinking is. It's not about vineyards and winemakers and third generation families and all that sort of posh silliness that we see around wine. That's a very, very minority amount. And I also realized that if you're not into that posh stuff, which most of us aren't, I'm certainly not, then your other option is to go with cheap, mass-produced brands. And the sad thing is there's actually a huge, like more than you will ever get round to tasting amount of wine out there that sits really well in the middle. It's wine that's made for drinking by honest people, to be enjoyed for what it is, a thirst quenching beverage. That's what Smash Grapes loves. That's what we're about. And that's what our tastings are about as well. So to get back to to where we're in the right direction is that tonight's tasting is not about winemakers and vineyards and history and prestige and all of that sort of path. It's about what makes wine, this wine in particular, tasty. And also, hopefully, if there is going to be any learning tonight, it's to take away the fact that if you can learn why this wine is tasty, what makes it a tasty wine, what makes it an enjoyable wine, what makes it the sort of wine you like drinking, then you can, next time you're wandering down the wine aisle at your local supermarket, make better and more informed decisions and make less of a gamble when you try something different. Because the problem is, we don't try different things when it comes to wine. The UK is a massive wine consuming country, but 80% of the UK wine drinkers tend to stick within 2 to 5 brands or styles of wine that they know. The vast majority is just 2 or 3. It's just 2 or 3. And that's because we are concerned or scared or sort of don't want that regret of buying something that we're not sure about. And so we just retreat back to what we know all the time. And so we're here to tell you through the medium of this virtual tasting that actually you can make some really informed, easy decisions about the wines on the shelf or about the wines on the screen, because hopefully you'll be shopping online for your wine as well. Some informed decisions, which mean there is no risk, that you are going to enjoy them every single time. And that's what tonight's tasting is about. It's about learning what makes wine tasty and how to identify that on the bottle. So that's how it's going to go.
Cool.
Make sure you have your glass of the first wine handy, wine number 1. And I think, Dan, you're just going to demonstrate Slido for everybody so that we can get some feedback on the wines as we go along.
Yeah, just really quickly going to run you through Slido and how that's going to work. So obviously head to the Smash Grapes website. If you haven't got the link already, head to smashgrapes.co.uk, go to the Try Before You Buy tasting and then virtual tasting event information, and you'll see a button there that says Slido. We're going to use that this evening just for a little bit of interaction. Obviously, we've got we've got the chat going on YouTube as well that we will pick up. We've got a Q&A thread in Slido, but what we are going to do is run a couple of polls as well. So I've just launched the first one. So if you've got your you've got Slido open there, what that's going to do is it'll now trigger up a little poll, and we just want to know what kind of things you look for in a good wine. So that could be, see, price, flavour. Smooth is coming in there. I'll just pung this across. So yeah, flavour, smooth. A lot of people said price when this first went up. As more people vote for the same thing, the word's going to get a little bit bigger, and it just gives us a little bit of a feel for what you guys out there are thinking of the wines as we go through, and just bits and pieces when we when we come across them. Liquid at room temperature. That's always good for a wine as well. That's always good. Drinkability.
Good. Yeah. Also, all of these words are things we're going to talk about tonight. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about why wine is drinkable, why wine is tasty, why wine is full of flavour, why wine is fresh and zingy. I love fresh and zingy wines. We're going to talk about why they're like that, and then we're going to talk about how they became like that. And it's the how which is going to be the key thing.
Cool. All right. Okay. So it's we're getting on for 10 minutes into the start now. So let's get everyone back in the room. What I'm going to do, obviously, remember, as for part of this, you for taking part, you have been given £10 of wine tokens as well in your Smash Grapes account. We'll do the first 3 wines. We'll do the white wines, and then while we take a short little break, just in case anyone needs to nip the loo or anything, what I'll do is I'll show you a quick demo exactly how to claim those wine tokens, so you know what you're doing. So Sam, wine number 1 then.
Yes, right, let's go. Let's start drinking some wine. Wine number 1 is, the first one is the white, and it is a Viognier. Viognier is the grape. It's by Montrochet, and it's from the Pays d'Oc, which is a region in the south of France. It's more specifically from Roussillon in the Pays d'Oc. We'll come to that in a bit. But yes, Viognier is your first white wine of the evening, so make sure you've got yourself a glass. So before we talk about that wine, let's talk a little bit broader. So why is wine tasty? What are the things we look for in a wine? Well, we look for, specifically with a white wine, we want it to be refreshing, we want it to be thirst quenching, we want it to be zingy and fresh was some of the words that I saw on there. And we want it to sort of refresh the palate and be enjoyable to drink. How does wine become like that? How does wine become like anything, really? Whether you like your wine refreshing or if you like it full-bodied, it all comes down to weather, the climate. And that's all we are going to talk about tonight when it comes to why wine tastes like it does. So for a white wine like this, highly refreshing, we're talking about acidity. And actually for all white wines, really, where they sit on a scale between how refreshing they are and zingy and fresh, and how full-bodied and chunky and how much oomph they have, all sits on a scale to do with acidity and sweetness, sugar. Okay, so the more cool climate countries, the countries that are colder, you're going to get high acid in the grape varieties. And in the more warm climate countries, you're going to get more sugar. Why? Because, well, the grapes get more sunlight, they get more heat, they ripen, and therefore they turn the acid into sugar. Why is that relevant, Sam? Well, actually, it's basically the key way we are going to know what a wine tastes like. So if I have a look at this white wine, it's from the south of France. Okay, so it's a warmish place, but on the scale of England to the Australian desert, it's more on the England side, let's face it. So it is a cool to moderate climate in the Pays d'Oc in the south of France. Okay, so that means that we are going to be more on the acidic side. And if you have a look at our little scale that Dan's put up for us, we like to call it the light and fruity to bold and juicy scale. So where there's high acid and low sugar, we get those sort of lemon, citrus, tangy, lime, fresh flavors. And then as we go through into hotter climates, like say Central Australia, but we're not there at the moment, then you get less acidity, more sugar, and you go into those tropical fruits, your pineapples or your mangoes or even banana and that sort of thing. So that is how the weather or the climate of a country dictates the flavor of your wine. So have a think to yourself, if you're a white wine drinker, what do I like? I like crisp, refreshing, high acid, really sort of mineral, like just, easy drinking white wines. Then you're probably into your cool climate white wines. You like Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, there's a big one. Or you like Pinot Grigio, which comes from northern Italy. You might be the sort of person that says, no, Sam, I like a big chunky white wine, and we'll get to that in a minute. Then you're talking about warmer countries. You might be talking about Australian Chardonnay, perhaps a South African Sauvignon Blanc, which offers a little bit more oomph. So what we're talking about here, and we're going to talk about this a lot tonight, is how weather influences the flavor of the wine. So we're in the south of France. Yes, it's warm compared to our climate, but it is sort of on the lower end scale. So this Viognier is the grape. It is a thick-skinned grape, which means it does like the heat. It can tolerate it, so you will find it in hotter countries. But generally still got plenty of acid. The signature flavor for Viognier, if you want to remember, and if you like it to look out for, is like a tangy orange. And I think you'll get this with the wine. So yeah, Viognier is the grape. It's from southern France, the Pays d'Oc, and you've got that sort of tangy orange citrusy flavor, which makes it lovely and refreshing, super drinkable. What have we got? Pear drops, yes, grapefruit, zest, pears, lemons. Yeah, so we're in that sort of citrusy, cool climate, high acid environment. Really great stuff. The Pays d'Oc. So if you have a look at the little map, I've called it Roussillon, that's where it's from. The Pays d'Oc is a broader sort of region that covers quite a lot of the south of France. And then within that, you've got smaller regions like the Languedoc, Roussillon, things like that. We'll talk about that more when we come to the Spanish wine because it's a little bit more relevant. But basically, in a lot of the old world countries, like Spain, France, they have quite ancient sort of ways of breaking up the land and sort of giving them categories of quality. And the big ones, the ones that sort of engulf lots of regions, are supposed to be lower in quality compared to the smaller specific ones. The reality is that nowadays in modern winemaking, there's not a lot between them. And actually, in a lot of the old world countries, it's brown envelopes that sort of make you either qualify or not to be sort of in the good crowd. So here at Smash Grapes, we don't pay too much attention to that. We just taste the wine, and if we like it, great. So yeah, technically this wine is from the Pays d'Oc because it's not qualified to be listed as from the Roussillon, which is a smaller area which has different rules to sort of be categorized as a wine from the Roussillon. But it is from the Roussillon, and it's just got the Pays d'Oc badge on it. What that tends to mean is you're going to get far more value for money, because with the Pays d'Oc label, they can't put as high a price tag on it. So yeah, let's have a look. Citrus fruit, grapefruit seems to be the big one. Yeah, I mean, so it's, yeah, grapefruit, orange. We're talking about that sort of citrus, tangy fruit flavor, super refreshing. And yeah, just really a great summer wine, really, for easy drinking, patio sort of thing. Dan, do we have any questions coming in?
Just bringing this graphic up for everyone to just see. If you've got Slido open, you can throw some more bits in here. Just as we go through the wines, we'd just like to ask you what you're tasting. Ultimately, you know, we're not here to say to you, oh yeah, this one's got hints of this and hints of that. Taste is so personal. So yeah, we kind of will just describe something as either being, you know, acidic and fruity, or we would say, you know, like we keep it broad. So we might say tropical fruit or citrus fruit. You know, whether you taste lemons, grapefruit, that's entirely up to you. In terms of questions, we've only had one come in, and quite a few people have voted on it as well. So let's just let's bring that back, because we, you know, we feel free to throw questions at us just whenever you want. Just put them in either the chat on YouTube or in Slido. Should we have the reds open already to let them breathe?
Good question. So your reds technically have already had breathing time, because Dan opened them a few days ago before he sealed them in the bottle. So they have already sort of been exposed to a little bit of oxygen. Breathing, it's a funny old thing. It's not really that necessary for most modern wines, for drinking wines, for the wines that you're going to buy at the supermarket or on your online wine shop and drink straight away. Breathing and oxygenating and decanting and all of that sort of faff with red wines is really for wines that have been put away for a long time. They get a thing called bottle shock, which is basically where they've been sealed in a container for so long, in that glass bottle for so long, and then the air hits them when you open them, and actually the flavors are just really muted. They're just non-existent, and therefore they need time to open up and sort of and come out, basically. However, you know, if you do spend a bit of cash on, you know, a real big chunky red wine that's got a bit of age on the shelf. So for example, like Sainsbury's will do you a Barolo that's 2010 for about 20 quid. That's had 10 years in the bottle. I would bring it home, and before you tuck into it, let it breathe. But when we say let it breathe, what we don't mean is crack open the bottle and just let it sit on the table, because the reality is not a lot of oxygen can get down through that narrow neck. If you really want to get air to your wine to let it breathe and open up, the best thing to do is to decant it. That doesn't mean you need some sort of fancy gear. Just get your Pimm's jug or your water jug or your Pyrex buddy measuring jug, whatever, and just pour it out into that jug. Sometimes when I go to tastings in restaurants and stuff like that, and I've got a red wine that needs that, I'll ask them for a water jug from the bar. I'll pour the red wine into the jug, let it breathe for a bit in that jug, and then I'll just pour it back into the bottle so it's in the bottle. And it's actually the process of tipping that is getting the air through it, rather than sitting still in the ambience, if you like. So yeah, taking the cap off and leaving it on the table, it's not really done a lot to help you, to be honest.
Very good. Well, we'll probably round this one off then. White number one. I mean, I'll just put the other graphic up there on screen just to give everyone that little bit more info on it. Don't know if you just want to talk to. Obviously, it's 13% this, so it's not a low alcohol wine. It is vegan. If anyone out there is particularly interested, and you know, to be fair, most of the wines we stock are, but really that's just because it's modern winemaking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, using meat-based filtration, which is the only way that meat or animal products would come in contact with wine, is pretty old school now. So yeah, most are vegetarian and vegan. The ones that are vegetarian are if they've used eggshell products to filter. So that's there for you. But yeah, to summarize this wine, if you love crisp, refreshing whites with that tangy fruit flavor, this is the wine for you. Viognier, it's a grape that not many people have heard of because it's generally hidden in white Côte du Rhône, which is where Châteauneuf du Pape comes from, blends. So it's blended in with lots of things, and that's why you don't hear about it on its own. But it does offer that lovely, tangy sort of fruit flavor, if you're into that thing.
Cool. A couple of questions. So get glass 1 finished off. We'll do a couple of these questions, and we'll come back to a few more after question 2. A lot of people saying very nice, easy drinking, really like this, which is great to see. Tracy asked, are the light and fruity whites always acidic? The light? Yes, I guess. So, basically all white wines are acidic. All wines are acidic. There's going to be acid in some of our red wines as well. And actually the best wines balance them really well. So even if we went all the way to the opposite end of the scale and found like an Aussie Chardonnay that's been in the Barossa Desert for a year and it's super chunky and packed with sugar, the best winemakers will make sure that there is acid in that wine as well. And the way they do that is by making sure that there's balance throughout the year. So the technical term is called diurnal change. And what that means is there's as much cool time as there is hot time. So that might be at night, for example. So it has very cold nights to give the grapes a break, or it might be up a mountain and therefore the altitude provides cooling factors generally in the morning, like dawn and dusk. So the best grapes and the best wines will have that balance of acidity and sugar. They won't be all one and all the other. And actually bad wines, like the poor, like wines where you think, oh, are the ones which are the polars. So that are packed full of acid but have not got enough sugar because the climate was too cold, or they were picked too early out of sort of necessity to get it on the shelf. Or the opposite, where they were over-sunned, over-ripened, and that we call that flabby in the industry, where there's just too much sugar in the wine. Yeah, it's a weird term. So yeah, wines which have too much sugar. So yeah, they will all have acid. And the other thing to mention is if the person who asked that question I didn't see is thinking, because I don't like high acid wines, Dan, you'll know about this because Dan was really anti-white wine when we sort of got together, and he said, that acidity, I just don't like it. The other problem is a lot of the big branded, mass-produced wines, and I'm not going to say cheap wines because actually there's some great cheap winemakers out there, but it's the mass-produced branded wines. They don't do the work in the field. They don't do the work using the climate and the weather and understanding how the weather affects it. They do it in the winemaking process. So they just take whatever they've got and they add acid in the form of powder, or they add sugar in the form of sugar. And that's when you get that horrible acid flavor. So if you've not enjoyed those high acid cool climate wines so far because of that, it may be because those big brands just aren't doing it in the sort of natural way. And then before we move on to open wine 2, so make sure you've got a nice empty glass with wine 1. Open the lid on number 2, get that one poured out. Viognier, what should people be eating with it if they want to eat something that's technically, a technical pair for it, should we say? Yeah,
so Viognier, on our little scale of light and fruity to bold and juicy, it's not all the way at the light end. It's a little bit up there because it is a slightly chunkier grape variety that has a bit more sugar, a bit less acid. So it's got a bit of weight to it. It's got a bit of power. So it's not the lightest of the light. So you can pair it with stuff that's a little bit richer. So, last night we had like a creamy pasta at home. I tried all the white wines with it and the rosé with it. And the Viognier is great because the acidity really cuts through cream. So if you've got something that's rich and creamy, and you know that sort of claggy mouthfeel you get from rich, creamy things, or high acid wines will just sort of come and clean your palate. They'll sort of clean the flavour off, and it feels nice and refreshing. It's a bit of relief for your mouth. So anything like that, creamy, that sort of thing. Roast chicken, something that's light but with a little bit more oomph behind it. I wouldn't say like salads and fish. That's for your Pinots and your Sauvignons that are super light, super acidic. It's a notch up from that in terms of the weight of the dish.
Cool, cool. All right, well, we'll move on to wine number 2 now. I've seen, obviously, there are some other questions. We'll keep coming through. We just want to keep moving on, keep the wines coming. So I will answer all of these questions that are coming through. So, Sam, wine number 2, then, please. Wine number 2.
Fantastic. Wine number 2, white number 2. This is Torre Solar, the Macabeo. There we go. Dan will bring it up on screen, I'm sure. So Macabeo is the grape variety. It's a Spanish grape. It's a Spanish wine. It's from Castilla, VDT. I'll come to that in a minute as the region in Spain. So yeah, Macabeo is the grape. It's also, Spain do this a lot because of Catalonia and then the rest of Spain. They have different names for grape varieties. So it's Macabeo, but it's also known as Viura. And the reason I bothered to mention that is because Viura is the main white grape in white Rioja. So it's a big deal for Spain. It goes into white Rioja. As Macabeo in northern Spain is where that name comes from. And the reason it has its own name up there is it's also the main blending grape for Cava. So Cava, just like Champagne, it's made in the exact same way as Champagne, is a blend of white grapes. And the sort of the chief one that they use is Macabeo. So it's a big deal in Spain, Macabeo Viura. It's a very important grape. But likeliness is that you've never heard of it because you've heard of White Rioja and you've heard of Cava, but they don't often talk about it on its own. It's a fantastic grape. It's got acidity. It's got a sort of a nutty savouriness as well, which comes out in the Cava. But this white wine is called Sobre Lías. And what that means is on lees in English. And that basically means is that they did the winemaking, they crushed the grapes, they squeezed the juice, they got sugar, they added yeast, and then obviously it makes alcohol. And the yeast dies after a certain amount of sugar consumption. And sobre lees, on lees, means that they've left the yeast in for a bit. And they sometimes stir it up, like on, a couple of times a day, that sort of thing. What that does is add this sort of lovely creamy richness to white wine. So on lees, sobre lees, very common in Spain, very common in France as well, in your white burgundies and that sort of thing. It adds this lovely creamy texture and body to a white wine. And when we talk about body in wines, whether they be white or red, what we're talking about is that mouthfeel, the difference, say, between skimmed milk and full fat, or even skimmed and semi and full fat. There's that scale, isn't there, of one is a bit more watery and one is a bit more creamy. And that's what the body is. And so sobre lees on the yeast adds this lovely, rich, creamy texture to it. It's also had 4 months oak aging. So that means that once they've done all of that stuff, it goes into oak barrels for 4 months. For white wines, oak has a few different effects. For red wines, it has a few different effects. We'll focus on white at the moment. It adds flavor. So it can add vanilla and spice and a toastiness, but it also sort of mellows and smooths the wine out to make it more drinkable. And again, it adds that sort of texture and weight and body to the white wine. We're in Castilla then, in Spain. So we're going south, it's central south. Castilla-La Mancha is a very famous region in the center of Spain. It makes a ton of wine, huge amount of wine comes out of Castilla-La Mancha. I'll actually have a taste of this. And Castilla VDT, again, is a slightly broader region, and VDT actually means vino de tableau, so wine of the table. It means table wine, which for some people, the French have a similar term, strikes the fear of God. Oh, table wine. What does that mean, table wine? It doesn't sound particularly prestigious or exciting. That's what wine is. Wine is for the table. Wine is for drinking. Dan, table wine's your favourite, isn't it? When you go to a wedding, you're just, mind sweeping the tables.
Exactly. Favourite type of wine, if you ask me, when you're at a wedding, what is your favourite wine? It's table wine. It's the stuff that's that is made for easy drinking with food, with friends. It's that's my favourite grape. Definitely my favourite grape. Now we just I've just pulled up the taste cloud there. A lot of people saying kind of dry, smoky, earthy, tangy. lovely and light. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Creamy.
Loads of stuff going on, yeah. So we've taken a step up a notch in terms of flavour. The Viognier was a bit more one-dimensional, just clean and fresh. Now we've got that Lees yeast adding flavour. We've got the oak adding flavour. We're in a hotter part of the world, in central Spain. It's very enclosed. There's no, inland is hotter, obviously, than by the ocean breezes and that sort of thing. So we've got less acidity, more sugar. The sugar becomes alcohol, so we've got a bit more alcoholic warmth as well. And that just creates a more concoction of different flavours going on and a chunkier wine as a result. And so, it's a wine with power and oomph. But I think personally it offers balance, and balance is the most important factor when it comes to our sort of scale of acidity and sugar as we move up through that scale. Because the moment you get it too much of one and not enough of the other, that's when the wines just aren't enjoyable. And I think, you've got acidity in this wine, you've got a freshness and a cleanness to it, but then you've got a weight and a fruitiness. And I think personally, you're sort of moving into that more tropical, pineapple-y sort of style as we get into that hotter climate and the sugar goes up and the acid goes down. But to go back to the Castilla VDT, the Spanish are brilliant at table wine, so do not shy away from VDT. So to compare that, for example, Rioja is a very, very small region, and it's called a DO, Denominación de Origen, and that's the high end. We've had to jump through several hoops. In fact, in Rioja they do about 3,000 checks a year on their winemakers to make sure that they're jumping from all the prestigious hoops for quality. And yes, that's why Rioja is probably the most famous Spanish wine in the world, if not one of the most famous wines in the world, because of those checks. But VDT, Vin de Table, is about normal everyday drinking. It's what wine was invented for. It was invented for by the Greeks, by the Romans, then the Spanish. It's what wine is all about. So don't shy away from these wines.
A lot of people are eating their olives with this one and saying it's really improving the flavour. So on terms of the snacks, they're just there for you to eat as and when you want. Anything that grows together goes together. So olives and wine,
absolutely,
doesn't matter. Will always go well. And actually, we gave you sweet and salty popcorn because a little bit of salt will also work very well with wine. So feel free to tuck into those snacks whenever you want as we go through. You've got 6 full glasses of fairly high alcohol wine, so it probably is the responsible thing to do. But we're not about tasting the wine and spitting it out. Get it down, yeah.
Definitely not.
Couple of other questions, Sam, just while I've got you. Does price always dictate a good wine?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There are lots of things that go into the pricing of a wine. Firstly, the most obvious stuff is the costs. You've got your bottles, your shipping, and all that stuff, as well as the cost of the labour and the producing. At the low end, let's go down to the low end for a start. The average £5 bottle of supermarket wine, so it's £5 at the supermarket, or £5 to £6 at the supermarket. By the time you've removed tax, and in this country that's a big factor, £2.50 just on duty, then you've got the VAT and all that sort of stuff. By the time you remove tax, then the average price of a glass bottle, the logistics and all that sort of stuff, you're left with about 37 pence for the juice in the bottle. And so you've got to ask yourself, for 37p, so for less than a litre, 750 ml, what sort of quality is that juice going to be? It's not going to be great. And so we at Smash Grapes, we do advocate for trading up slightly from that price point. We drink £6 wines, absolutely. We drink £5 wines. I'm a big Aldi fan. I think they've got a fantastic range of wines. But what I would urge you to do if you're in that market is try and grab a £5 or £6 wine that was once £8 and has been dropped to £6, because that means Sainsbury's or Tesco's are taking the hit. They're probably taking the hit because it's not moved off the shelf. Don't be scared about that. The reason wines don't move off the shelf sometimes is because people haven't heard of it before, and so they just don't touch it when it could be absolutely fantastic. So try and grab those cheap wines when they've been discounted. The reason being, because if you move up to that £8 bracket, it's not a huge leap. The tax stays the same, duty doesn't increase, The VAT obviously goes proportionally. The bottle doesn't change. The logistics doesn't change. So actually, if you trade up to £8, straight away you're looking at more like 2.5 to 3 quid's worth of juice in the bottle. Huge amount more wine for your money. So if you can trade up to that price point, that's the sweet spot. That's where the beauty lies in buying wine, and that's where you'll find most of our wine priced at, because that's where you're getting the quality. With regards to the other end of the market, I used to work for Gordon Ramsay at Claridge's, and they had a master sommelier there. And there's only a couple of hundred in the world. It's one of the highest qualifications in wine you can get. This is a man who's taken 50 years in the wine industry to get to the level. And he said to me that at a restaurant price, so remember this is restaurant price now, only a fool pays more than £40 if they just want great tasting wine. And what he means by that is after that 40 quid mark in a restaurant, which is about 10 to 15, maybe 20 in the supermarket, what you're paying for is not great winemaking or flavor. It's history, prestige, badge, big marketing budgets. So let's look at our Bordeaux's and our Burgundies and our Champagnes. These are firms that invest millions, hundreds of millions of pounds every year to marketing themselves as the best and the most prestigious wines in the world. Their winemaking hasn't changed since the days when they were shifting it for €1 a bottle. It's just about the marketing. So that'll give you a sense. For me, it would be pretty rare for me to spend over 15 quid, and the vast majority of the time I'm in that £8 to £10 bracket. But no, price does not dictate quality.
Right, so a couple of other questions come in, but we'll crack on. Let's get glass 2 done, and you'll notice you've got a very, very light, very blushy bottle of rosé for number 3. So you can use your white wine glass. Get this one poured out. A lot of people, Aldi doing awesome wines. Regular Aldi shopper, so love some of their wines. I think touching on the bit we said before about decanting, if it is a wine that does need a bit of decanting, and that's something with at least 5, if not a little bit more years aged in the bottle, should you ask for a carafe or something if you buy it in a restaurant? I mean, hopefully if you're buying something with more than 5 years on it in a restaurant, they will decant it for you. But yes, if they don't, just ask for a jug or something just to move it around to give it a little bit of life. Right, let's look at number 3. There's a couple of questions coming in about sulfite sensitivity and whatever, so we'll pick that one up after this one. But yeah, let's pour out number 3. I mean, look at the colour of that. That's very light, isn't it?
Okay, onto the pink stuff.
The pink stuff. A lot of people in the chat saying they only drink the pink. So yeah,
that's fine by me. That's fine by me.
So let's just before you get onto that one, obviously number 2. I know I didn't leave the bottle picture up for very long. It's the Torre Solar Macabeo. You can see it there on screen. So Sam, what are we working with here then for number 3? We're going rosé for this one.
We are going rosé. I am a massive fan of rosé. And I think because of like brands like Gallo and stuff like that, that sort of white Zinfandel pink stuff, it gets a bit of a bad rap, the old rosé. And actually, the reality is that rosé is a wine that's made with as much care and attention as any other grape variety, and in some cases even more, and in some cases there's some really fantastic, historic, great quality wine makers. So what we've got here, we've got Le Vion Rose. It's a Cinsault rosé, so the grape is Cinsault, Cinsault, that's the grape, and it's from the Pays d'Oc again, so we're in that south of France region. And Cinsault is a grape that basically it's a red grape. It lives around in that area, and it's generally used for blending. That's why you've never heard of it again. That's a big thing about smash grapes. We like to pick up on these sort of unheard of grape varieties. And it's a red grape, and it's in red blends, and it's also very common in rosé blends, particularly Provence Rosé, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, and we've all got an idea about what Provence Rosé is. You know, that sort of French Riviera, pale pink, trendy sort of bottle shape, super rich yachts and all that sort of stuff. And generally, if you go down the wine aisle, it's the stuff that can be priced up to the crazy area for wine. The reality is it's just a winemaking region, and it blends grapes that can be found all over the south of France. Again, marketing makes it popular. You know, you've got Brad and Angelina making rosé wine and all that sort of stuff, which escalates the price. But as a drinkable wine, it is fantastic. And blend the Cinsault, Grenache, and various other blends that go into Provence Rosé makes really tasty wine. How is rosé pink? Well, basically all rosé comes from a red grape, and the color in red grapes doesn't come from the juice. All juice is clear, whatever color, whatever grape it is, the juice is clear. It comes from the skins, and the amount of time that this juice spends with the skins before it gets turned into wine dictates the color. So for red wines, that could be 15 days. For a rosé, it could be 15 hours. What does that do? Well, it adds tannin, because that's where the tannin flavor is in the grapes. It's in the skin, and it adds extra flavors. And so we'll come back to tannin when we deal with red wines. Basically, it adds more weight and body to the wine. So yes, Cinsault, it's a red grape. In the south of France, you get these blends, mostly Grenache based, Cinsault based, various other rosés. And what's the difference between this then, say, and the very, very popular Pinot Grigio blush or something like that? Well, Pinot Grigio is a pinky red grape. It makes rosé. It's light and it's crisp and it's acidic and it's refreshing. It's everything we were talking about back on the Viognier. It's super easy drinking, and it's fairly one-dimensional. The reason I love Cinsault rosé and Provence style rosés, because you won't catch me spending money for a Provence, but you will absolutely see me handing over notes for that sort of south of the France blend, is the Cinsault and the Grenache just add lovely weight and body to the drink. So not only is it super refreshing, easy drinking, but it's got real flavor to it, and it's got body to it, and it's got weight, and actually it makes it a really good food wine as well. It's really goes well with quite a lot of things. Anyway, I'm going to drink some.
A lot of you saying strawberries and creams, soft fruit, raspberry, drinkable, summer berries. You know, there's a lot of there's a few dry comments. I think that's probably coming from the tannin. Because yeah, obviously this is, you know, we've done a Cinsault red wine before, and if you're not into heavy red wine, Cinsault actually makes a very, very lovely light red wine. It's very much like candy floss.
Candy floss.
That one? Yeah.
I could the one thing I want to pick up
squash we've just had in as well.
Oh yeah, the one thing I want to pick up there, strawberries, absolutely. That comes from the red berry flavors from a red grape. Absolutely classic rosé. But the one thing I want to pick up is the cream.
Yeah,
strawberries and cream, and that comes from rosés which are made with grapes that have body and weight to them. They've got thicker skins basically, so like Cinsault or Grenache Cinsault is the common blend for this part of France. That sort of weight from the thickness of the skins adds that creaminess and that body to the wine, and it just makes it so much more enjoyable to drink. It's more than just like a glug fest. There's a lot more going on. So if you're into this stuff, I love Pinot Blush. Me and my wife drink a lot of Pinot Grigio Rosé because it's just necking wine. Fantastic in the summer. If you want something that's pink and refreshing, but it's got a bit more power to it, look at the south of France, your Pays d'Oc, your Languedoc, around the Provence area. Look at your Cinsault, your Grenache blends. Often on the bottle, it will just say like blend, that sort of thing. These wines are going to offer you a lot more weight and a lot more interest for your money. And as long as they don't have that P word on there, you can get fantastic value for money.
Awesome. Right. So let's just have a quick look. We've got a couple of messages, a couple of questions. Let's have a little look here. So yeah, there was just a bit of thing about sulfates, and can you get nice wines that are low in sulfates? I've got a bit of a sensitivity. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, you can obviously. I know there's someone put it in the chat. There's filtering systems. You can buy sulfate-free wines. You just got to keep your eyes out, really, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about sulfates, guys, obviously it's personal to everybody. There are a lot of chemicals that are permissible in wines that don't have to be even labeled. It's got about 120 is pretty scary. They're mostly sugars and acids. Sulfates does have to be labeled because it's one of those sort of allergens sort of thing. Without sulfates, wine would not make it to this country. Basically, the sulfates blocks oxygen from making the wine go off. And the reality is if we didn't have sulfates or sulfites in wine in low quantities, they would be off before they got into Dover. And that's just a part of the industry. So even the most organic, biodynamic, chemical-free, supernatural wines of the world will still have sulfates in them so that they can last the trip to wherever they're going. People that are allergic to sulfates and sulfites, now again, this is personal to everybody and I don't want to sort of tread on anyone's toes here. You are far more likely to get reactions from things like dried fruit or packaged nuts and those sorts of things than you are a bottle of wine. The levels are so low in a bottle of wine, like really, really low. So unless you're in the habit of smashing back lots of bottles on your own in a night, Dan, come on now, it's not gonna affect you a huge amount. So if you are sulfite sensitive, personally, I would see how you go with wines that are normal because it shouldn't be an issue for you because the levels are low. They are far, far lower than a lot of other products out there that we consume on a daily basis. But if you are struggling, like Dan says, there are options out there. I don't know a huge amount about sulfite-free wine. It's not something I know enough about to sort of comment on. Give it a try and see if it's for you.
Cool. Right. So we're gonna get glass 3 finished. A couple of people said this would be great sparkly. Yes, I'm sure it would. And do you know what? Someone as well mentioned, what do we think about Whispering Angel? And I've never heard of Whispering Angel until about a week ago, and then someone mentioned it, and it's a Côte de Provence rosé. They sell it in Sainsbury's. It's about 16 quid a bottle, and I just had a quick look, and it's primarily a Cinsault, so it's exactly the same as this particular wine that we're putting out this evening. So yeah,
I can see, Dan. I can see is there a big difference in taste when buying boxed versus bottled?
Yes, boxed versus bottled wine. Yeah, bagged wine.
Yeah. So we are living in an age where wine packaging is changing rapidly, and it's great. Ultimately, it comes down to the environmental impact. Shipping glass is expensive and pretty hefty on toll. Excuse me, has a pretty hefty toll on the environment. At Smash Grapes, we tackle that by offsetting all of our carbon through a plan with ecology, which plants trees. So every time we ship you a case of wine, we sort of put a strike upon the board, and then we have to offset that with enough trees to eliminate the carbon, because at the moment there isn't enough alternative options for us to create a decent range of wines for you to buy. However, they're growing, and there's canned out there, there's boxed out there. In terms of like the quality of boxed wine in general, obviously there's going to be good and bad, just like there is in a glass bottle, but you certainly shouldn't turn your nose up at wine in any other type of packaging, whether it be boxed or canned. There's some fantastic stuff out there, and what it comes in basically has no sort of say in the quality. It's all about what's done in the field and then in the winemaking room, and what it goes in afterwards means nothing. So, there are going to be fantastic box wines out there, going to be fantastic canned wines out there. There's going to be, there's going to be lots of great stuff. This rosé, for example, this is not, great as a Smash Grape sales pitch. But this rosé is French and was bottled in Australia, and now here it is on our doorstep. So if we weren't offsetting the carbon for this, it would be pretty bad. We offset the carbon of every single bottle that we get, but it's not an ideal scenario. If they could ship it over in tankers to the UK, which is a lot less carbon impact, and then it's put into bottles in the UK, then that would be better. If they could ship it in boxes, it would still be just as tasty but better for the environment. So yeah, don't turn your nose up at box wine. Give them a try, see what they're like, and if you enjoy them, fantastic, great for the environment.
As well as the offsetting as well, we obviously, where possible, we use entirely recyclable packaging. So when you buy bottles of wine from us, we've got a fantastic supplier, and we ship all of your wine in cardboard, in cardboard boxes, but B, inside cardboard inserts that hold it. The bottles that you have this evening, at the minute, we can't unfortunately get away from using plastic for our wine tastings, but they are made of recyclable materials. They themselves are curbside recyclable with every council, because I know everyone's a little bit different. And if you did have any bubble wrap, that is actually biodegradable as well. So you can pop that in the bin, and it won't last for thousands of years. It will degrade pretty quickly once it gets wet. So yeah, we try and do as much as we can, as well as the offsetting. Because like Sam said, there's not really a viable alternative at the moment in time. So we're going to get this rosé done, and then we're going to move on to our red wines. Going to take just a couple of minutes before we do move on to red wine number 1. So you're looking for another number 1, but this time quite clearly a red wine because you drank the white one. Before we move on to onto that, how long does box wine last for once opened? I mean, you'd have to have a look on the packaging for what it suggests, but the fact that no air goes into it and the bladder just kind of collapses, you probably do have slightly longer than with a bottle of wine. And Sam, it's quite interesting with a bottle of wine. I mean, in both of our households, once it's open, it doesn't last very long. But if you do have a little bit of self-control, then you can just pop the cork back in, put the screw cap back on, and whether it's white or it's red, pop it in the fridge, because that will elongate the time it will last fresh, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Wine in the fridge, whether it's red or white, will last longer once it's open, just like any other perishable goods. It's a perishable food or drink just like anything else. Avoid extreme temperatures. Like when I cooked dinner tonight before we went live, the kitchen got very hot in here. I'm sat in my kitchen right now. It got very hot. It's not ideal for wine, so try and avoid extreme temperature fluctuations. But yeah, your whites will last sort of 3 to 5 days. Your reds will last 5 and a bit. But yeah, get them sealed and get them in the fridge. You can get the Vacuvines from most supermarkets now. They sell them at the end of the aisle or online. I'm sure you'll get them on Amazon like that, I'm sure. And it's basically a valve like a valve rubber bung that you stick on in the top of the bottle, and then you pump the air out of it. So there's a vacuum in there, because oxygen is the enemy of wine. And that will make it last much longer, and they are like a couple of quid. So if you are in the habit of not finishing your wine, I don't know what's wrong with you, but yeah, get yourself a Vacuvine, and that will solve all your problems.
Cool. Right, so a couple of minutes now. So if you do want to take a quick break, eat some of those snacks, finish off glass 1, 2, or 3, and maybe nip to the loo. I know what Sam's bladder's like. He's probably going to run off now. What I'm just going to do is, obviously, as part of this, as part of this tasting, and essentially what us at Smash Grapes are about. If you've obviously been on the website and you see that we are the Good Wine Company. So not only is our wine good for the planet with our offsetting and our push to use recyclable materials, our price point allows us to be good for the producers as well, like Sam explained, with the amount of money that goes to the people that make the wine. But part of being good for you as well is actually we want to reward your loyalty. So a lot like your Tesco Club card, we offer you wine tokens. So you can earn points every time you purchase from us. You can give us a little share on Facebook, like us on Instagram, do all of those things to earn yourself some points and ultimately get yourself some vouchers to spend in the shop. So you've all been credited to the email address that you booked the tasting on. You've all been credited with £10 worth of wine tokens. So I'm just going to very quickly walk you through how that process works. Right, so let's see if this is going to work for me. All best laid plans. Right, so what you're going to do to claim your wine tokens, please, you are going to head to our Smashed Grapes website. So it would help, wouldn't it, if I made this so that it was the right size for you to see. Apologies. There we go. Right, so you're going to head to the Smashed Grapes website, smashedgrapes.co.uk. If you've been there a few times, top right-hand corner, or if you're on the phone, you should see it as well. Top, you've got a little logo up here, which is going to be your member area. So this is where you log in. So you simply log in. Now you need to use the email address that you signed up for the wine tasting with in order to get your wine tokens. So I'm just going to sign in here. There you go. If you haven't made an account, you just click create account at the bottom, and off it goes. You know, it takes a couple of seconds. It's not very difficult at all. I'm just going to go back to the home page just to show you this, but it was down on the other page. What you're then looking for is the wine tokens icon. So it's just asking me if I'm 18. So you can see this down here. If you're on mobile, it's a green and white star, bottom right. I'm going to press the wine tokens, and I get a little pop-up. And it'll tell me here, I have 1,050 wine tokens, okay?
Oh, you got loads, mate. What are you going to spend it on?
I'm buying all the time. So 950 tokens allows you to get your £10 voucher. So you'll see it here. It says your reward, £10 off coupon. Okay? Right there, view. So that's already there. You don't need to do anything more than that. You just press the view and then redeem. Simple as that. That now gives you, you'll have a code emailed to you, and it shows you here in the window your code. You press apply. When you then go and shop around the store, your £10 will automatically be applied in the checkout. Straightforward as that. It's that simple. So yeah, it's
the beauty of technology.
Yeah, exactly. Beauty of technology. Now, while I've got the wine tokens open, actually, it would be good just to show you. So you see now, I've used 950 tokens, so I've only got 100 left. So, but I have got a £10. It's been emailed to me in case I don't want to spend it right now. So it is on email, and you can see it in your coupons as well. In this wine token portal, if you scroll down, it says here, refer your friends. Now, we're obviously, we're a small business, but we're on a mission to try and get everyone drinking good wine. And actually, what I can do here is I can Facebook, I can put it on Twitter, I can email it, I can copy this and send it to someone in an email. If you're doing this on your phone, it'll give you WhatsApp, all of that. When you share that code for referral, you will give a £20 off to any of your friends that you share it to. And then when they use it and go on and spend make their first order, not only do they get £20 off, you'll then get an email to go, and here's a £20 voucher as a thank you for referring. So yeah, it'd be really, really good if you're on there just to share with your friends and earn yourself 20 quid worth of wine. You know, who doesn't want that? So there you go. That is how you claim your wine tokens from tonight. That £10 can be spent on anything in the bottle shop. That is also applicable on subscription cases, but primarily it's in the bottle shop. And at the end, I'm just going to show you where you can quite easily find all 6 wines that we've tried tonight. Right. Code red time, Sam. It's code red. Red number one. Number 1 this time.
Okay, let's go on the reds. Let's go. So, we've got 3 fantastic reds. I can't tell you how good these reds are. I'm so excited about them. But one of the great things about them is they illustrate the 3 sort of levels, I guess, if you like, of red wine. Now, that's not strictly true. It's on a long scale, but it's nice to divide it into 3 simple levels for us to understand. First wine is going to be light, refreshing, easy drinking red. The second one is going to be silky, smooth red. And we'll talk about why it's so silky smooth. And then the last one is going to be an absolute beast of a red. You know, if you're out there and you love chunky, serious, in-your-face red wine, stain your teeth stuff, then that's number 3. But I'm really excited because we've got 1 of each, and they're all fantastic examples. And once again, what makes them those 3 different things is the wine, oh, I've had too much already, is the climate, the weather in the countries that they come from. So red number 1, Manos Negros Pinot Noir to start with. Pinot Noir. It's from the Rio Negro, which is a region, it's in Argentina, but also as well as being in Argentina, you've got Patagonia at the south of South America, which engulfs a little bit of Chile and a little bit of Argentina. So it's actually also in Patagonia. Excuse me. So we say it's from Patagonia as well as Argentina. It's a Pinot Noir, which is one of the lightest red grape varieties you can find. What do I mean by lightest? Well, it's got very, very thin skins, which means it's pretty sensitive to the heat. It doesn't like too much heat, doesn't like too much sun. And the wines it produces are on the lightest and sort of easiest drinking end of our scale. And therefore it likes cool climates. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, particularly with this wine and talk about climates, is the way that latitude and the position of a country affects the climate. So Dan, I think you've got a little map for me, but basically, when it comes to wine making, countries can fit into sort of two bands. You've got the north of the equator band, which you hopefully can see on the map. I can't see it because we're on a delay. Oh, I can see it now. So you've got your northern hemisphere winemaking countries there, and they generally sit between 20 and 50 degrees latitude above the equator. The ones at the bottom of that are obviously closest to the equator, so they're super hot. So you're going to get hot climate wines, and the ones at the top, and the UK is just sneaking into there, are our cool climate wines, so they're the coolest. Then you've got the southern hemisphere band at the bottom there, where Australia, South Africa, and South America are. Again, at the top, they're close to the equator, so there are hot ones. And at the bottom, they're actually pretty close to the Antarctica, and so there are cool climates. So again, going back to that climate idea of how climate affects grapes and affects the flavor of wine, it's their closeness to the equator overall, which affects the wine. So we're in Patagonia. That's right at the tip of that southern hemisphere band. It's basically getting into, we're quite close to Antarctica territory. It's pretty cold for wine making, but Pinot Noir loves it because it's very sensitive. It's got very thin skins. It doesn't like too much sun. It's like a ginger on the beach. It doesn't like too much heat. And therefore it's light and it's fruity and it's got lovely sweet cherry flavors. And then there's that acidity that's still coming through. And the acidity, slight tang, I can see on the thing. It's the acidity which gives it a refreshing nature still, just like our white wines. It's got that sort of sour cherry, refreshing nature to it. This one's had 12 months in oak, and we'll talk about a little bit about what oak does to red wines in a second, but I'm going to drink a little bit first. So oak with red wine, three things again: flavor, add spice, vanilla, coconut, that sort of thing, toastiness to the wine. It adds weight and body to the wine. So actually, you can get plenty of cool climate Pinot Noir. Take New Zealand, for example, which is oak free, and it's really light. It's really on that light and fruity scale. It's super refreshing. You can drink it chilled, and it's almost as sort of refreshing as a rosé. But this one with 12 months oak from Argentina, a little bit more body, a little bit more weight to it. And then the final thing that oak does for red wine is smooth out tannins. What are tannins? So tannin in wine comes from the skins. It's that bitter, sort of astringent, gum drying flavor that you get from red wine. And if you're still not sure about what I mean, have a think about tea. Tea is rich in tannins. Black tea, if you drink black tea, it's got that bitter, astringent, sort of gum-drying nature. If you still don't know what I mean, put an old tea bag on your tongue and you certainly will. Black coffee, that's another one. It's that bitter nature that comes from high tannin, plant-based products. Interestingly, coffee has a belt as well, which runs through the center of the two wine belts. So got your two wine belts on the map of the earth there. Coffee runs through the middle. But anyways, yeah, so tannin comes from the skin of grapes. So the thicker the skin, the more tannin there is. So Pinot Noir is a low tannin wine, but it still does have some tannin. And obviously, unlike our white wines where the juice is pressed off and the skins are taken away straight away, or our rosé where the juice is pressed off and the skins are left in for a few hours, the red wines have a decent amount of time on the skins, up to 2 weeks, to get the colour and the flavor, and that's when tannin comes in, and that's when it starts to flavor the wine. So yeah, this Pinot Noir, naturally low in tannins, but just to make sure that's extra smooth, 12 months in oak barrels. So that smooths it out. We're talking cool climate, so just to remind you, we're talking higher acid, lower sugar, generally lower alcohol as a result. So you've got that vibrant, refreshing sort of acid flavor. And as we move up into the hot countries, we'll get lower sugar, lower acid and higher sugar, and we'll get more weight and more body and more dark fruit. And so if you remember with the white wines, we talked about the movement from, say, a citrusy lemon to a juicy pineapple. With red wines, we move from, say, like a tart raspberry into more a jammy cooked fruit nature. Actually, to break that down a bit more, we might move from raspberry into sort of a plummy sort of flavor, and then plummy into blackcurrant, and then blackcurrant into dark, rich, jammy, sweet flavors. And that again is the acidity going down and the sugar going up as we go from the colder places into the hotter places. So Cabernet Sauvignon would be a great example because you can get it all across the world. If you like Cabernet Sauvignon, you take it from a cool climate, say Chile, somewhere high up a mountain where it's nice and cold. You can get more blackberry, sort of cool climate flavors. As you move into, say, the Napa Valley or the deserts between the Napa Valley and Las Vegas or Central Australia, you're going to get that cooked, jammy flavor, that sort of rich, dark fruit. And that, again, is the way that weather affects wine. So we've talked about tannin, we've talked about skins, talked about latitude. Yeah, this one actually surprised me. I picked it out because I thought it was going to be light and refreshing, but it is quite concentrated still. It's had a bit of warmth, which has really ripened the grapes. Dan, you're a Pinot Noir fan. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's there's definitely a bit more. There's a bit more of that like sour cherryness to it than your typical. I drink a lot of Chilean Pinot Noir because mainly because I can put 2 bottles back without really feeling it. But this is a 14% of this one. It's high.
Yeah.
So alcohol's probably got. It's probably got its part to play in that, that kind of sharpness to it. But yeah, a lot of people picking up on that cherry. Quite a few saying sour. I'm just looking at the slightly smoky. That vanilla. That's all going to come from the oaking, which is great.
Yep.
Ash. Yes, of course. Tobacco. That's all from that oaking. So yeah, no, it's I enjoy it. I think it's really nice. It's I think this is actually a really good one to pick up on as well. Some of you may have poured these out and been like, oh, I've got bits in it, and sediment is naturally occurs in any fermented drink, so it happens very naturally in beers as well. And when I say beers, I'm talking your proper beers, your Belgian stuff, not lagers, and you shouldn't be worried that there's a little bit of sediment floating in the bottom. It all comes down to the winemaker and how much they filter it at the very end of the process. Some people believe that it should be absolutely crystal clear. Others think they should leave a little bit in because that's where a lot of the flavors develop and come from. Obviously, your supermarket big labels that just want mass produce all the time. There's nothing in those, so it might be a foreign experience to you to see anything left at the bottom of a glass. But this is it's absolutely fine. Don't panic about it at all. I've just noticed a little bit in mine. It's absolutely fine.
Don't worry about it. It's one of those things that nobody's really proved yet how much filtering might strip flavor out of wine. Nobody's sure, and therefore how much they filter really just comes down to the individual. And some do it a lot, and some do it not very much. And yeah, like Dan says, it's has no effect on the flavor. It's completely organic.
A couple of questions. Have you considered doing a monthly subscription? Someone here does Naked Wines. So yes, we do. We run a subscription. Ours is a slightly different concept to what Naked do. We run a subscription basically where it's a blind case. You can choose whether you want red wines, white wines, or a mixed case. And then myself and Sam just pick the wines for each month that we think you're going to enjoy. We send them out, and you'll then you receive them. And every box is a little surprise. And we've got a lot of people on those subscription cases. And if you head to the Smash Grapes website, you'll see subscription cases at the top where you can take a look and sign up for that. A couple of other questions coming in. What are our thoughts on chilling Pinot Noir? I think you may have even mentioned it there, Sam. Obviously, chilling anything does dull the flavour, but this wine can take it, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Chilling, at the end of the day, anything that's too cold will dull the flavour. That's why we, lager, we have it chilled because there's not a huge amount of flavour, so it's fine. You can chill any wine, but you can chill Pinot Noir, and it's very drinkable. It's the same like when I was talking earlier about, drinking ice cold Pinot Grigio blush. You're not drinking Pinot Grigio blush because you want the full-bodied flavours. You're drinking it because you want it down your neck. And so that, so you drink it chilled. You can drink Pinot Noir chilled. Absolutely recommend it, if you're into it. But it will mute the flavours. This Pinot Noir in particular, there's quite a lot going on. I mean, that taste map that you guys produced, fantastic. All sorts of different things going on there. So perhaps it's not best suited for chilling, but the stuff like that Dan is a big fan of, the Chilean Pinot Noirs, where it's sort of just very light and fruity and refreshing and easy drinking. Yeah, absolutely. Get it chilled.
Cool. One more question before we move on to wine 2. So get wine 1 emptied out of your glasses, please. Get number 2 poured. China was highlighted on our map. Are they a wine producing country? Yes, they are. China they are, and they are trying to get their place on the world stage. The problem with Chinese wines and, just something at the minute is it's just regulation and, they can be a lot more free with what they put in their wines and what they label and what they don't. And so it's a little bit of a Wild West over there for that. So until they match up to kind of the European food standards and all those kinds of things, you probably won't see, kind of mass market Chinese wine for a little while, I wouldn't have thought, but yes, they absolutely do. They do produce Chinese wines. Right, so number 2 then, Sam. Number 2. So, there was a message as well about, will you put all the names of the wines back up because they missed them? Yes, don't worry. At the end, I'll show you all 6 bottles. I'll show you where you can find them, and yeah, we'll go through all that at the end. So, number 2 then, please, Sam. Number 2.
Okay. Fantastic wine now. Oh, I'm so excited about this one. Bodegas, where are you? There you are. Bodegas Outerlanden Bobal. So here she is. Bobal is the grape. Bobal. Bobal. It is the second most planted red grape variety in Spain after Garnacha. Garnacha we talked about Grenache with Rosé, but Garnacha is the Rioja grape, so it's very popular. But yeah, the second most planted grape variety in Spain, Bobal, and nobody's ever heard of it. It is fantastic. Bobal, what can I tell you about Bobal so we can relate to it? It's kind of like the Merlot of Spain, but it's just so much better. It's Merlot on steroids. It's Merlot with punch, with kick, with attitude. Oh, I love it so much. So Merlot is so popular, isn't it? Everybody drinks Merlot. The big brands chop it out at crazy volumes. It's something that we all understand and we all know. Why is it so popular? Well, the reason it's so popular is it sits in that medium level of our light and fruity to bold and juicy scale. It's medium in body, and that's because there's a medium level of alcohol, a medium level of tannin, and a medium level of acidity. It is the medium grape variety. And for me, as a wine drinker, I get bored of Merlot. It's so medium. I sometimes think, I'm a bit sick of this wine. It's just not really showing me anything because it's so medium. Bobal I love because it takes all of those medium bits, medium body, so we're not going too heavy, medium tannin, so it's not too bitter, medium acidity, so it's not too sour cherry. And it creates this perfect balance of beautiful, silky, smooth drinking. I mean, it's the definition of silk. I'm going to have some right now, actually.
Just pop that little scale back up again, just to show you with the red wine that, cooler climate, high acid, low sugar, raspberry, sunny, bold, juicy, up to kind of that low acid, high sugar, jammy kind of vibe. So where's this one sitting then, Sam, in that scale?
We're sat in the middle, and the perfect middle ground is plum. it's where we sit with that middle flavor. It's plum. So we're talking purple, dark fruits, plum, blackcurrant, blackberry. And yeah, so we're in Manchuela, that's near Valencia. So we're talking sort of southern central Spain. We're getting pretty hot now. These grapes are getting a lot of sun, they're getting a lot of ripening time. That acidity is coming down, the sugar's coming up. We turn that sugar into alcohol, which creates body, but it's a perfect medium ground. These guys actually out of London are quite high up. They're about 1,000 meters above sea level on a plateau, on a mountain. So they're quite sheltered, which keeps it relatively cool. And it's perfect balance. And for a wine drinker, balance is what you're after, especially with red wines. It just creates this silky smooth texture, silky smooth flavors. It's not too punchy. It's not attacking you. It's not light and a bit insipid, how Pinot Noirs can be if you're not careful. It sits beautifully in the middle. The other fantastic thing about this winery out of London, this Bobal, is it's a biodynamic vineyard. And that might be something that none of you have heard of. It's something that's sort of just catching on in the wine industry, but it's absolutely brilliant. So biodynamic, what does that mean? Well, it's basically like organic plus plus. So they have organic practices, but it's sort of taken to a next level. And really what it's about is looking at agriculture and the agricultural effects of the wine industry. And they are huge. You know, we rip up a lot of land to grow wine across this planet. We've done a lot of damage to the planet in order to grow vines. And it looks at how we can go back to nature. So for a few examples, if you've got a vineyard and you've got bugs and pests that are eating the grapes, the natural response might be to get a pesticide to get rid of those bugs. The biodynamic approach would be what did these bugs love eating before we turned up with grapevines? Oh, they liked this bush or that bush that growed naturally. Well, we ripped them all up. Let's put them back. So they put those bushes back in the surrounding areas and the bugs go over there and they eat those bugs. They've got weeds growing. What do? Well, let's get some sheep to come in and eat, or goats to come in and eat those weeds. And when those weeds are digested and turn into ultimately organic fertilizer, let's put that back into the land. The soils around these biodynamic vineyards, a fantastic example is to look at South Africa for biodynamic soil. So when the colonies turned up in South Africa, the Dutch colonies in about sort of the 1600s, they turned up. They didn't like the Atlantic winds blowing off. You got the Antarctic, the Atlantic, these huge winds. They planted acres of oak trees to protect them from the wind. Those oak trees sucked the soil dry of any goodness. They then planted vines. And then because the vines weren't doing very well, they added all sorts of chemicals and what have you to make them grow better. Biodynamics realizes that the best course of action is get rid of the oak trees. They've got no business being there in South Africa. So it's all about going back to nature, going back to what's normal for the environment. And actually, as a movement, it's getting pretty popular in winemaking. It's getting a lot more traction, a lot more interest. But for agriculture generally, and I'm not talking just about wine, but maybe milk or meat, it really is a direction that we need to consider. It's about farming in a way that isn't like ripping one out of the planet. And it's pretty interesting. You know, does it have a massive effect on the taste of the wine? Possibly not, but it is a much better way to practice winemaking. But that doesn't detract from the fact that this wine is sexy drinking, super silky, super smooth in that perfect medium level.
We're getting a lot of love for this wine. I'm just going to
love for the Bobal.
Yeah, a lot of love for the Bobal. I'm just going to bring up the tasting map for everyone as well. If you just give me 1 second, it's really interesting to see what everyone's saying they're tasting on this one. We've got some fantastic words here. Obviously, you know, blackberry, oak, cherry, smooth. You know, they're all coming through, which we kind of you know, black pepper, vanilla, cinnamon, those kind of spices. We know that's all going to come out of that bit of oaking. A couple of mentions there about it being a little bit porty, a little sour kind of in there. And you know, that's you know, a couple of people tasted that, so great. Where was one? There was a great one on it. New shower curtains. Love that. Fantastic descriptor for a wine there. So Yeah, I mean, look, taste is so subjective. That's why we're not going to tell you what you should be tasting. You're tasting all kinds of things. But a lot of love here for the Bobal number 2. While we savour this one and get ourselves ready for number 3, what does it say about a wine which is reduced in the supermarket was a question that came in. I think you kind of picked this one off a little bit. I mean, it's depends what it is, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about supermarket wine drinking, now, don't get us wrong. Obviously, we're here to sell you wine over the internet. That's what we're all about. But at the end of the day, me and Dan go down to our local supermarkets several times a week and we buy wine. That's what everybody does, and there's no getting away from that. The supermarkets will have a vast range of wine, bigger than what we've got online, and they're going to pitch the big brands, the well-known stuff, your Castillo de Lablo and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. They're going to pitch those at standard price. There's not a lot they can do about the price of those wines. In fact, they're probably dictated to them. They sell themselves. What I would say to you is those wines are just don't go there. They're so overpriced now. It's unbelievable. You're paying for marketing. You've also then got the wines that they don't need marketing because they are familiar by location. So your New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc or Italian Pinot Grigio, French Merlot. And what I would say to you is there's nothing wrong with those wines. The reason they're famous is out of their own merit, not marketing. So there's nothing wrong with them. But there are far more than plenty. There are hundreds and thousands of options out there for you that are unrecognized, that are going to be better value for money. Then you've got these ones that sort of fill the gaps in between, which are unknown, and they come in all shapes and sizes. When I go to the supermarket and I want to buy some wine, that's what I'm looking for. I look for wines that Sainsbury's tried to pitch at £8 and nobody bought, and now it's £6 or now it's £5.50. Because the reality is that wine, it won't be a big brand, it won't be a famous area or location. It will be an unknown area, an unknown location. And if I can look at it and go, right, what's the grape? Okay, I know that grape. Well, maybe I don't know that grape, but I also know the weather in that country. I know that it's a hot country or it's a cold country. So what can I expect? Is it going to be high acid and refreshing? Is it going to be high sugar and big and chunky? Is that what I want tonight? Do I want refreshing? Do I want big and chunky? Those sirloin steaks need big and chunky. Okay, that's what I want. Then I'll make a judgment, and actually I take a punt, and 9 times out of 10 it will deliver based on that knowledge alone, because there's very little wines out there that are sort of going to pull the hoodwink over you and say that they're something and they're not. These people are very honest about what they're doing. They're farmers at the end of the day, just like milk farmers or cow farmers or from beef or whatever. The ones that you've got to be worried about are actually on the two ends of the spectrum. This isn't all about don't go for cheap. It works both ways. The ones you've got to be worried about, the big brands selling cheap, we've talked about that enough, but also the opposite end of that scale is the ones that are selling you heritage. Bordeaux, Burgundy, Côte de Rhône. If you don't know what Côte de Rhône is, think Châteauneuf-du-Pape. What they're selling you really is heritage and history, not necessarily. No, they do some great wine, so I'm not knocking the wine, but not necessarily great winemaking. And so there was a perfect middle ground, which is where we're sort of trying to aim here, where there's fantastic farmers essentially producing a great quality product. And that's often where you find the discounts in the supermarket. So it's win-win.
Cool. So before we move on to our last wine, I'm just going to very quickly just walk you through how you can find all 6 wines that we have run through tonight. You've obviously got your £10 in wine tokens there, and whilst we hope you've enjoyed this as an evening, as an experience, we would love you to go on and buy some wines. You don't have to use that voucher just on these 6. We've got a whole store full of stuff, but I'm just going to show you how you can very easily find these wines. So give me 30 seconds to just press the button. I can see a few more few more questions coming in. So you're going to head over to the Smash Grapes website, whether that's on desktop or on your phone. Obviously, I have applied my £10 voucher, but I've shown you how to do that before. You're going to head to the shop, so you can either choose it in the menu or on the header. So you're going to head to the shop, and where you see here the collection, you'll see a collection. You will see try before you buy. So in the collection, you just head to try before you buy. Therefore, you don't need to worry about exactly what they were. All the 6 wines we've drank are here. So we've got the 3 red wines. Obviously, the last one here you're about to try, the rosé, and the 2 white wines, all here. Just in one collection. We will drop you this on email as well, so you can see it. It's dead easy for you to find. Make it nice and simple. We will drop you an email as well, so you've got them if you want to go on and spend that £10 in wine tokens. Remember as well, you can buy any of the other wines. We've got a number of stuff on offer. We've got some, if you're a Sauvignon Blanc drinker, we've got some recommendations for you. Pinot drinker, someone has asked about recommendations, so we'll do wine 3, and then we'll go over that because that's quite a nice way to round off. Right. Sam, wine number 3. So get number 2 out your glass. Don't want to mix the grape. So get number 2 out your glass, and we're going on to wine number 3. So what have we got in store with the one you already tipped off as the beast? Wine number 3.
This wine. So I tried this wine nearly 2 years ago now, I think. It was the first time that the supplier that we use released it. Do you remember those times when you could go to events? I went to this event in central London where they were showcasing all their wines. They had a DJ and everything, loads of people in the same room. Crazy times. Yeah. And I tried this wine and I literally just couldn't believe how good it was for the price. I mean, seriously, I tried that. In that room, there are wines that are £6 a bottle, and there were wines that are £400 a bottle in that same room. And of course, I tried the £400 a bottle wines. Of course, I did. I had no interest in selling them, but you've got to have a try, haven't you? Whilst the opportunity is there. But I was blown away by the quality of this wine. So yeah, absolutely love it. This is Bodegas Angosto, and it's called La Tribuna. And it doesn't mention the grape because it is a blend. It is a blend of 3 grape varieties. Excuse me. In Spain, they are Garnacha, Syrah, and Monastrell, GSM. And GSM is a pretty famous blend, also known as Grenache, Syrah Shiraz, or Mourvedre. And they are the three grape varieties that are blended together to make Côte de Rhône. So I'm sure lots of you have heard of Côte de Rhône. I'm sure lots of you have seen it on wine lists. If you haven't, if you're not quite sure what I'm on about, Côte de Rhône is the home of the world famous Châteauneuf du Pape. So all Châteauneuf du Pape is a blend of Grenache, Syrah, Shiraz, and Mourvedre. So our GSM blend, which are available all over the world, you can get some fantastic GSM blends in Australia as well as in France, is from Valencia in Spain. We're not too far away from that Bobal before, a little bit more, towards the coast. It's had 4 months in oak. And so what's the deal with blending? Well, the thing about blending, often blending is sort of considered, are they blending because none of them were that good, or are they blending because, it's just better value for money or something like that? Blending is actually an art form, to be honest with you. It's extremely difficult to get right. It takes a lot of trial and error. And what it's about is it's taking grapes that have different properties and bringing them together to create sort of a perfectly rounded wine. And with our 3 grape varieties here, they all offer something very, very different. So the Grenache, or Garnacha, as it's called in Spain, Garnacha loves the sun. It gets ripe really easy. It's bold and fruity and gorgeous and juicy. That's what the Grenache is providing to this party. The Shiraz, or Syrah, Also loves the sun, but when it gets the sun, it goes spicy and meaty and smoky. And Rhone Syrahs, so if you go back to the Côte de Rhône, Châteauneuf du Pape country, single grape variety Syrahs without the other two friends are really smoky and meaty and intense. So that's what it provides to the party. And then Mourvedre, as it's known in the Rhone, or Monastrell in Spain, is weight, it's punch. It's the grape that punches you in the face. Christ, it's a beast. Its skins are so thick, it's got so much power. And so that's why they bring it. And they bring the three together to make this perfect sort of triangle of unity to create flavor. So that's why blending in this case is not worse, but is better. It's fantastic. Interestingly, if you go back to Côte de Rhône, if you go back to Châteauneuf du Pape territory, French law dating back for hundreds of years says that if you're going to make a Côte de Rhône using the GSM blend in the south of France, you have to, by law, have at least 60% Grenache, at least 60%. Most of them are more. That's because it's the friendly one. It's the ripe, juicy one. The Shiraz and the Mourvedre, you can do what you want, but you've got to have 60% Grenache. Now, I spent a week out in the Côte de Rhône, and I thought it was brilliant. It was an amazing experience. I learned so much about winemaking. The food was amazing. The wine was incredible. And at the end of it, they said, "Oh, do you want to have a go at blending your own wines?" And I said, yeah, fantastic. So they provided me with some Grenache, some Syrah, and some Mourvedre in like some big jugs and a test tube, and you could measure it out. And I said, measure your own quantities out, make your own Sam Côte de Rhône. And I actually made it a three-way split. I did 33, 33, 33. Obviously, you got that odd 1% there. I can't remember where it went. I made it a three-way split. And the winemaker basically looked like he wanted to kill my grandmother. I had insulted him because to disobey those rules in France was seen as sacrilege. You've got to have at least 60% Grenache, if not more. Most of the time it's 70 or 80%, because the other two are such beasts. Like what, you can't, no, that's not the French way. We're too relaxed, we're chilled. Hey, come on, just drink Grenache, it's friendly. This wine is a three-way split. It's actually 34% the beast Mourvedre, it's 33% Grenache and 33% Syrah. That is why I love it. It is fantastic. It's chunky, it's rich, it's dark, concentrated, sweet fruit, it's spicy. It's just got everything. And have I conveyed how much I love it yet, Dan? I'm not sure.
Definitely have. Definitely. Oh, hang on. Yeah, definitely have. I'm just picking up a couple of questions here while we're asking people kind of what things they're tasting. There's been a couple of comments. There's been a lot of comments of, "Oh my God, love number 3." There's been one or two of not too sure. And I think ultimately anything that is going to tip the scales like this red wine is, there's always going to be a difference of opinion. But lovely to see a lot of love. Love it is one of the bigger words in the word cloud. So great, and taste is so subjective. So there's nothing wrong if you don't enjoy this one. But it's just if you like that kind of really bold red, especially after having a couple of wines, earlier in the evening, this really rounds the whole thing off. Spice, love it. Oak, best one. Blackberry, tobacco, kind of that bit bitter aftertaste. That's all coming from those weighty red grapes in there. A couple of questions, Sam. Let's go over these couple of questions. We haven't mentioned the years the wine were made. Are they from a range? No. So wine. Yeah. So years, vintage. That's a good one actually. We've not talked about it at all. We should have talked about that. So when you hear the word vintage, when it comes to winemaking, they're talking about the year that it was produced, nothing else. That is what, and when they're talking about vintage, or was it a good year or was it a bad year? What they're talking about is the weather that year. They're talking, what we've already discussed so far. Did the weather result in a good tasting wine or a bad tasting wine? Because I've talked endlessly tonight about how cool climate creates this and hot climate creates that. But
you only need a bit of a hailstorm right at the last minute, and all of your grapes get horrendous rot, or an early frost, or a summer that doesn't live up to expectations, and you've got wine that doesn't have enough sugar or doesn't have enough acidity, and therefore, it's bad times. It's bad times for the winemaker.
Well, summer ends early, and they have to harvest early, and they don't get as much from it, and all those kind of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what that means is that, we have good years and bad years. However, for most of the wines that we drink, and certainly most of the wines that we stock at Smashed Grapes, we tend to pick places where that level of change, that level of uncertainty is quite consistent. And therefore they can bank pretty heavily on a certain standard of wine. Ultimately, that's commercially better. If you want to buy a wine, you want to make sure it's the same quality every year. That makes perfect sense. So most of the wines that us normal people drink at that normal price point will be from regions that have a consistency about them. Now, if you go into the sort of the upper echelons, Bordeaux is a great example, because Bordeaux in the south of France has a certain climate that produces fantastic Merlot and Cabernet, but it's got what's called a maritime climate. So it's right by the ocean, by the Atlantic Ocean as well, very diverse. It can have some really shit times with storms and stuff like that. So they have very good years and bad years. Now, what that means is the hoi polloi might say, oh, yes, 1991 was a terrible year because they had rain, towards the end of the harvest, and that created a bit of rot or whatever. But really, when it comes to it, the taste of the wine, it's not a huge amount of difference. So to answer the question, actually, I come across this a lot when I was in the restaurant industry. People would say, 2018 was a bad year. Well, it was a bad year for, if you want to be in the high echelons of saying this is the greatest wine in the world, give me £200 a bottle. But for, normal money, it doesn't have that much.
We don't put, if you start and have a look at the wines we put on Smashed Grapes, we don't tell you the year, because we actually think that just generally the fundamental of what's the outlying taste, what's the percentage, where's it from, those are the things that really are going to affect the choice of whether you're going to enjoy this one or not. So that's why we don't go with the year. Another question. You kind of mentioned it before, but I'll go on this one. How do you select your website's wines? Do you visit vineyards? Has lockdown affected the way we find them? Obviously, at the minute, we've got a couple of suppliers that we've been working with for a long time who kind of, they have a portfolio. They essentially send us a variety of stuff. We have a little, we have a little look at it. We have a little taste, see what we think. We have a good wine guarantee. So if you buy some wines from us that you've not tried before and you don't enjoy drinking them, we offer you the money back in wine tokens, because every wine that we put out has been kind of tasted by us, and we're happy that is a good quality wine. That it is that whole thing: drink now, enjoy now. Get out in the garden. If you buy anything from our patio wine collection, you will enjoy it. That's the way we pick our wines at Smashed Grapes. So there you go. And hopefully when the world opens up, yes, of course we will visit to a few places and have those chats. But at the minute, it's taste at home, like you guys are doing right now.
I like taste at home.
Taste at home. Will we do another tasting evening? Yes, we're going to do these every month. Yes, absolutely. We're going to do them every month. So the wines that you're trying tonight, the 6 wines, they are going to be our new in collection for May on the Smashed Grapes store. So as I showed you before on the website, when you go to the collections, you can hit up the try before you buy. That will show you all 6 wines from tonight if you do want to go on and use that wine token credit that you've got and buy yourself some wine. Obviously, it's a bank holiday weekend, so do bear with us with getting you the wines, but you'll definitely have them by Wednesday or Thursday if you do order over this weekend, ready for... I think the weather's going to pick up. I think next weekend we could be getting some barbecues.
Could be good.
Could be good.
Could be good.
But yes, if you want to go on, you can find them all in that collection. But then we've also got a lot of other collections going on as well. So, you know, your Sauvignon Blanc lovers, Pinot Grigio lovers. Because, yeah, you won't find a Marlborough Sauvignon because we are about those kind of lesser known ones, which leads on to the last question before I turn the Slido poll back off if there are any more just general Q&As. What is your favourite... what's your favourite lesser known region, Sam? Or, you know, give us a white and a red. Go on, just off the cuff, quick. A white and a red. God. I know my two, just based on the ones we've got in Smash Grapes at the minute.
So, white wine, Vinha Verde. It's Portuguese, so we're talking northern Portugal. Vinha Verde means green wine, northern climate, Atlantic Ocean, super cool, highly acidic. It's so acidic you think it's fizzy, but it's not. There's no carbon gone in there. So refreshing and light and lovely. Fantastic. So that's my white. Do we have any Vinha Verde in store, Dan, at the moment?
We do. We've got the Villanova in store at the minute, Vinha Verde.
Fantastic.
A bit like lemon sherbety, because it's that.
Yes.
But it's not. And so this is a good point, actually. When Sam says it's so acidic, you know, I didn't like white wine, and my thing was, it's too acid. I don't like it. You know, it gives me heartburn. But actually, that was just because I was drinking bad white wine that wasn't made very well. If you enjoy a gin and tonic, you enjoy high acid, refreshing wine. High acid, refreshing drink. So a high acid wine with that racy, like puckering mouthfeel is, you know, like a Vinha Verde. You know, it's not polarizing. And that one is particularly nice. It is particularly nice.
And what Vinha Verde does is it's got that acidity, but it brings sugar to the table as well, just like a gin and tonic or a cloudy lemonade. You know, there's sugar to it's balance, and that's what makes the acidity.
Red wine then. Red wine.
Oh God, that's tricky. That is tricky. I'm gonna have to say GSMs, so Grenache, Shiraz, or Mourvedre blends from Spain, like this fantastic one from La Tenuta. It's fantastic. I love GSM blends. You know, there is absolutely no reason why we should be spending serious money on Châteauneuf-du-Pape and Côtes du Rhône when you've got countries making wine like this on GSMs.
Yep.
And Australia make great GSMs as well. And actually, I'll broaden it slightly. Blending wines generally. So, for example, Bordeaux. If you love Bordeaux for its sort of lovely silky qualities, and that's a blend of Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. South Africa are amazing at Bordeaux blends. So look for blends that are in different countries to where they're born.
My white wine probably was the Gruner Veltliner that you got from Austria, the Funk Steel. It was our wine of the month. We need to pick another one for us. It's still on there at the minute. We've got a couple of bottles left. It was Austrian Gruner Veltliner. You know, lovely, really, really nice white wine. You know, and from someone who isn't a white wine drinker, really enjoyed that. And then red, Sicily, Nero d'Avola. It's their native red grape. You can get it, Look in the Italian aisle at the supermarket, or take a look on Smash Grapes. We've got a couple of Sicilian reds in. Nero d'Avola, Nero D''Avola. Absolutely cracking red wine, like unreal. Love it. Will it be different wine every time? Yes, we're going to do our next one last Friday of the month. So it'll be 28th of May. We will drop you this on email, don't worry. You don't need to remember now. 6 glasses of decent strength wine in. But Friday, the 28th of May, packs are on sale now. And we're gonna pick a country for our next one, aren't we, as our theme? So
I think
different
so.
wines. But we're gonna we'll come up with different themes each time. So we're gonna put that out. So keep an eye on social and on your email for that one as well. Just going to open up the Q&A thread. If you've got any questions, throw them in YouTube, or ideally use Slido as well, because we can see all of those. Would we consider doing a champagne/sparkling tasting? It'd be great to do. It's just how we get it to you and it still be fizzy. That would be the big thing.
Yeah, that'd be tricky.
Yeah, we'd have to think about that. Are any Australian red wines you'd recommend? Can't find any on our website.
Yeah, do you know what? Australian reds, I would recommend Barossa Valley Shiraz. So Barossa Valley is a very hot part of Australia. The Shiraz there is fantastic. We do need to stock some of that. We also do need to stock some of the GSMs. I'm not going to lie to you guys, those wines command a slightly higher price, so they would be premium for smash grapes. But they are great. They are really good, but they do ask. They're trendy, you see, and at the moment, and so they do ask for a lot more money, which is not necessarily what we tend to stock. But they are great wines. We'll have a look. We'll have a look. See what
we'll have a look at some Aussie wines in there. Are the monthly tastings different wines? Yes, we've just covered that. Yes, we're going to do different ones every time. Can we collect orders, or is it delivery only? We're based in the Northwest, and we do free delivery to pretty much most of Wirral and West Cheshire. But anywhere outside of that, it is delivery. We use Parcelforce. I think we've got if you spend over £70, so it's generally 6 to 8 wines, it's free delivery. But yeah, below that there's a delivery charge. Obviously, we are shipping you glass bottles in expensive recyclable packaging. So yeah,
make it worth you are. Buy
exactly.
6 or 7.
What do we think of English wine? We've had this a couple of times actually. We've been asked this. Is climate? Ultimately, it's climate, and is the weather? I mean, apart from a few people that we've got watching in Scotland, is the climate anywhere more unpredictable or changeable than it is in England? And obviously, it's cold. Ultimately, it is cold. So we've had this before. We've both tried quite a lot of English sparkling
we've tried
wine.
them.
English sparkling wine, great because you want high acid. So cold climate, sparkling, great.
Yeah, and if you go back to those bands that I talked about on the world map, England was just at the top of that northern hemisphere band. As climate change sort of affects the planet, those bands move up. Champagne is right in the north of France, and therefore all of a sudden, it becomes the south of England. Yeah, sparkling, I would get all over it. In fact, try to avoid paying for a brand. Again, we talked this quite a bit. Try to avoid paying for a brand. There are some fantastic brand operations out there for English sparkling wine. Nyetimber is one. My good friend who works for Nyetimber is going to hate me for saying this, but you're really just paying for the brand. It's sparkling wine. But there are some small operations. Sharpham's Vineyard down in Devon. They make brie, they make cheese as well. Their sparkling wine is, 16, 20 quid a bottle. Fantastic quality. Reds and whites, still wine. I'm not sure if the English climate's quite ready quite there yet, to be honest with you.
Let's have a look. Will we do face-to-face tasting events post-COVID? Yeah, potentially. It just all comes down to location. Just have to see how it all works. Right, thanks guys. Good session. Thank you. Can you explain and offer amazing Pinot Gris? Can we explain?
I love Pinot Gris. Would love to do some Pinot Gris. Absolutely. So Pinot Gris is the father of Pinot Grigio. It's the French grape variety that then gave birth to Pinot Grigio in Italy. You don't find it so much in France anymore, but you do find it in northern France, particularly like Alsace, which is up in the border with Germany. It's fantastic wine, high acidity, so refreshing. They're really good at balancing the sugar with the acidity to make these really tasty wines. We should definitely get some in. They do command high prices because they've got history, and generally if you want a Pinot Gris of quality, you've got to go with a vineyard with a name and history, which again, like we've said, is not something that smash grapes particularly do. But yeah, we'll look out for one. I'm sure there's one out there that we can do.
A couple of people saying that, what's the best wine you've had and all this kind of stuff. And, it's hard to narrow it down, but and I know we just did some tips on grapes, but if I was to say to you, like, what would be my curveball to throw in? Give Romania a go, guys. Like, give Romania a go. Like, Romanian Syrah, we've got one in the stock. We've got a couple in the shop, to be fair. We've got from a winery called Umbrella. We've got a Syrah, we've got a Pinot Noir, which both of them amazing. You know, a Romanian Shiraz, unbelievable. And then the Pinot Grigio Rosé is one of the best Pinot Grigio Rosés you will get, even though it's not Italian. But don't turn your nose up at it. It's fantastic. So yeah, give Romania a go. I've started seeing it on the shelves in supermarkets. So they are getting there, and obviously, if you're going to go on and buy a bit from Smash Grapes with your wine tokens, give the Romanians a look in. Just as much history as the French, but they didn't have the relationship with us. And we're the Lagerlaut drinkers of the world, so we're the ones that put the French on the world stage. Let's have a little look as well.
Someone here says, if you wanted to really impress someone who buys expensive but traditional French wines, what would you go with? I mean, if you've got a friend who likes expensive but traditional French wines, it's going to be a tricky operation to impress the person, because
don't tell them what they're drinking.
Yeah, don't tell them what they're drinking.
Yeah,
but I'll give you two. If they're a Burgundy drinker, give them, as Dan says, the Romanian Pinot Noir that we do, because if they're a Burgundy drinker, they will not believe what they're drinking for the price. They just won't believe it. They won't believe it. If you want to, I think, because we do that. How much do we do the Romanian Pinot Noir for, Dan? I can't remember.
$8 or $8.99.
Yeah,
like
$8.99. If you want to take that to the next level, you've got tonight's Mano Negras, which is a little bit more premium. You will absolutely blow their minds with this, as a Pinot Noir with 12 months of oak from Argentina. That will absolutely blow their minds. Otherwise, what was the other? Bordeaux blends. Yeah. So if they're interested in traditional French red wines and they're old school, look at the Silver Min from South Africa, which is $9.99 on the store. That's a Bordeaux blend, so exactly the same as the traditional French stuff, but made in South Africa. Fantastic.
Caroline says she loves Rioja. What alternatives do you suggest? This is one of the big things as well when we're doing these kind of tastings and speaking to people. Actually, Rioja is like what Sam mentioned earlier. Rioja is a blend. Rioja is a part of Spain, La Rioja region. It isn't a grape. It's not a style of wine. It's a region. But they have, they've got this. They're the tiniest part of Spain, but they've got this monopoly on all of the Spanish wines going out there. Generally, it is a Tempranillo. And depending on whether you buy a Crianza, Reserva, Gran Reserva, all of those just mean how long it's been aged in oak, So, we at Smash Grapes love. There's two regions in Spain that we love. Next door to La Rioja, La Mancha. Not La Mancha, Navarra, and then another big area in Spain is La Mancha. We've got a couple of great wines in the store at the minute. El Primero from Navarra, next door. Fantastic red wine.
Garnacha and Graziano, which are the other two grapes you find in Rioja. Fantastic blend.
And then, we've got a couple of good. I mean, we're massive fans. If you're going to go Spanish, we actually, we're big fans of field blend. You go to a winery, you say to Carlos in the field, what grapes have you got? And he goes, red. They've been growing forever. He's not bothered about the type of. He just knows they grow and they grow well and they make great wine. So field blend Spanish wines. We've got a fantastic one in store called Casa del Arco. We've had another couple of great organic ones. Tequiero, it's another one. Really great, just Spanish red wines. Don't get hung up. I mean, probably we did a Spanish wine tasting once where we went to the supermarket, and you look at the supermarket and it's all Rioja. It is all Rioja, but try and venture out. Try and go somewhere else.
It makes me mad. We've got a Tesco's near us. It's a Tesco's petrol station, and we often pop in there, if we need something for dinner or something. And it drives me mad. You go in there, and obviously, as a small Tesco's, the wine option is quite limited, and so you go to the Reds. And there's like 4 shelves, and 3 of the shelves are just types of Rioja. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, they've got limited space and they're giving up 70% of it just for Rioja. And it's because Rioja sells. You know, Rioja makes money and it sells. But ultimately, Rioja is Tempranillo, it's Garnacha, and it's Graciano, 3 grape varieties that are found all over Spain, blended in all sorts of different varieties. And if you see the word field blend, it basically means all of them. And there's no reason really for us to be sort of, you know, going for Rioja when there's so much of those available to us.
And if you like Rioja because of that silky finish and you like a Reserva, then go for something with a bit of oak in. You know, go for the GSM, go for the Bobal that's just had that bit, because it gives it that velvety silkiness that you know, just makes them easy drinkers. Great with food, great without. You know, Ali loves Gewürztraminer. What do you think? And are there any similar wines? We've looked at getting a Gewürztraminer in actually as well. We just haven't found the right one yet. But I mean, the Grüne Veltliner, you know, the Funkstil that's in store now, you know, another Austrian, it's a great, that same kind of ilk of racy white wine, you know.
Yeah, Gewürz. I mean, it's in a field of its own, but yeah, the Gruner we've got is very similar. Racy acidity, lots of sort of vibrant flavors. But Gewürz, you know, it's in a field of its own. So we'll see if we can get one. But yeah, try the Gruner in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely. So no other questions currently in the Slido. So hope you've had a great evening. Obviously, something a little bit different. As I said, we're going to be doing these every month. So the next one is the 28th of May. So, you know, get yourself online. You know, tell your friends. Obviously, let's see if we can get a few more people along to this one next time. We are actively looking at some other packaging options as well. Obviously, as part of our commitment to being good for the planet, we do want to try and, you know, steer away from the bubble wrap, despite being, you know, biodegradable. We are looking at kind of a pouch version, a bit like a Capri Sun, but not quite foil. We're looking at that, so keep your eyes peeled for that. It will make our packages smaller to post, maybe even letterbox size, so you won't have to be in to receive them, which would be great. Hopefully we'll get that up and running for the end of the month, but we will see. Otherwise, remember, you go to smashgrapes.co.uk, you log into your account on the site. If you haven't created one already, make sure you create it with the email you used to purchase the wine tasting. That is where your £10 of wine tokens will be. And then the little green and white star at the bottom right hand corner is where you claim your wine tokens. Go on tonight, claim your tokens, and you can use that £10 to spend against anything in the wine bottle shop. Let's just see if anything has come in towards the end before we wrap up. Someone said, it's been fun and educational. I'm hammered now, so thanks for that.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. This is a wine tasting to drink and enjoy wine, not to talk about the soil and I can taste the gravel and the subtle undertones. I can taste the tears of the people in the field. You know, like, we don't want that. This is just, we want you to just enjoy the wines. You know, these are all nice wines for drinking now. If you've got any questions, feel free to stick on, bung them over in the Slido or on the YouTube chat. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you next month. We'll drop an email around with the collection of the tasting wines. But thank you very much for joining. I hope to see you again at our next tasting on the 28th of May. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for joining us. Please do go and share with friends. The only way we're going to grow our movement and spread the word about great wine and how easy it is to enjoy good wine is with your help. So please do go and spread the message. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the wines. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Remember, you know, we give you that £20 off to share, and you get one back as well. So, right, we'll leave it there then, and we will send round that email to you very shortly. But from us, thank you very much, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Cheers, guys. Good night.
Bye.